You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with my husband, Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Here is episode 126, The Fall Checklist. Before we get started on this episode, a short or not so short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster or the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed herein. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 20 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all solo podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon about mold and dealing with mold in your home at amazon.com/author/Steve Worsley. And if you're interested in scheduling a mold consultation, over the phone consultation with Steve, you can be sure to find out more about those and his availability at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Toxic Mold Podcast. Steve, we are now in the month of Halloween. It's October.
Yep. Now you keep wanting to get into the end of September, so we're finally past that.
Yeah, so, here we are. It's truly fall at this point, at least in other states.
For all our listeners that love the fall and all the color changes, that's kind of, we're pretty much getting to the end of that here in Wyoming.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just,
fall doesn't exist here.
The tundra.
Yeah, it is. But for everybody else in all other parts of the country that actually have a fall season, we are talking today about the fall checklist, right? So what is the fall checklist?
So it's something we go over every year. We do the spring and fall checklist. It's just a reminder for people, it's easy to correlate the spring and fall with daylight savings time. And I understand there's places that don't do it, but it's just a good time for our listeners to think about, especially where we live, there are things we have to do. I mean, we don't even have central air. So, October comes around and whatever air conditioners we put in the windows, we take out. I have to unhook all the hoses. I got to take down your little rabbit thingies that keep the rabbits away from vehicles. And it's just, it's time for me to be prepared for that snowfall to come, and I can plow, the water lines aren't going to freeze up, change batteries and smoke detectors. So it's just a good time to go over all this stuff. And we're not going to go over everything. If you sign up on our email list, the checklist that we're going over, this is the paper that I'm going to put on in the email that's going to come out.
Absolutely. So if you want to sign up for that email list, you can go to cnccontractorservices.com and you can sign up for the mold fact sheet or for the checklist. Both will ensure that you will get this email with the fall checklist items.
Exactly.
So awesome. So walk us through what is on the fall checklist.
So like I said, there's a lot of things. And, we always start with the exterior. And it's interesting. So we're all creatures of habit. So when I do inspections, when I do VPAs, when I do our fall checklist, I always start with the outside. And the reason I do that is if I find something wrong on the outside of the house, missing shingles, improper grading and drainage, siding missing, that tells me hey, Steve, pay attention to the roof below those missing shingles. Are there water stains, stuff like that? So we start with the exterior. First and foremost, make sure you unhook your hose bibs because those will freeze up if you leave the hose on there. that freezes up, and guess what happens?
Pipes freeze.
Exactly. And that could end up in your basement, crawl space, living area, anywhere. So we want to start with that. You want to check obviously your roof. If you're scared to get up there, go out a little ways, go out to the street, or, however far you got to go, get your binoculars out, and make sure that everything on your roof looks good. There's no debris up there, no missing shingles. If you have a metal roof, a tile roof, on a metal roof, make sure all the screws are seated. On a tile roof, like down in the Southwest normally, make sure none of those tiles are missing or anything like that. So once you're done with that, you can walk around the house, check for holes in the siding. Like I said, what I do, I have to, the birdhouse I already put away. I mean, there's minor things like the gutters. Make sure, because you're not mowing for the most part anymore, make sure your downspout extensions are down. And that's designed, obviously, to get that water away from the foundation. Mm-hmm. A lot of people put those up in the summer because they get in the way when they're trying to mow or weed eat. Well, all winter, if you live where we do, you're not mowing.
Exactly. So. Anything else on the exterior?
I could go on the exterior, but, make sure that the outlets are operational. Make sure the GFCI, all outlets outside should be weatherproof, so make sure they're covered. The GFCI's work. I mean, like I said, I could go on and on about it, but, check for all your hard surfaces, meaning any brick, grout, driveways, sidewalks. Make sure there's no cracks. If there are, seal those cracks up. Make sure there's not a gap between like your driveway and your garage where water can get down in there. Freeze-thaw effect is something big in the wintertime. And you could ask me, I could make this whole episode about the outside if you wanted.
So those, and it again, if you sign up for the email list, you're going to get the full fall checklist in the form of an email. But so those are the highlights of the exterior things you have to check. Then what do you do once you do the exterior?
So we go to the favorite thing that most people hate. And I know that's contradicting, but crawl spaces, typically that's where you're going to go next. A crawl space or up in your attic. And I know our listeners are like, I hate that. Every time I open the attic door, insulation or attic access, insulation falls in.
Spiders, mice, bugs, all that nasty stuff.
Yeah, and it's not a whole lot of fun to do, but as an inspector, the inspector side of me, that tells us a lot. Like that's like how a doctor would look at doing a full panel of blood work. Yep. Like it tells us so many things. You're looking for water stains, moisture accumulation, your vapor barrier, if there's any voids in it, pest intrusion. I mean, you could go on and on. Not insulation, you can check that too, but ventilation, something we talked about last week. There's so many things you can look at, and it's going to give you a good idea. So when we talk about a crawl space, it should be really dry this time of year. It's fall. Okay. Depending on where you're at, it's been pretty dry. If there's any moisture or elevated humidity levels down there, you don't have to even have a gauge, but hopefully our listeners listened last week and they put a gauge down there. You can tell if it's humid. Like, it's like walking into the bathroom right after someone showered. Like, you can tell it's humid in there. If it's humid in your crawl space or attic this time of year, there's something wrong.
And so checking for all the things you talked about in both the crawl space and if they have an attic or if they have an attic, they're looking for all of those things.
Right. And I understand not everybody has crawl spaces. So, when we talk about that, you can call it your basement. But if you don't have a crawl space, make sure you're going, even as an inspector, so when we do mold inspections, if we open that attic access cover and there's blown in insulation and we can't see the rafters for the trusses, we inspect it from the access point. Okay. Because we don't want our listeners to go get up in their attic and start walking around and fall through their ceiling. Oh, if you're not standing on the framing up there, you will fall through the ceiling.
Exactly.
So, but at least pop that cover open. I know it's a pain in the butt, but just wear an N95 mask, put safety goggles on, open that cover, and just take, with your flashlight, just look around and make sure nothing's out of the ordinary. You know birds' nests and stuff like that, wasp nests. Someone told me there's a bunch of bees down by the shop, and just make sure that kind of stuff's not going on.
So checking all of that. So then once they've done the exterior, and then they've done the crawl space and the attic, now it's time to go to the interior. So what all are people checking when they go inside?
So, we don't talk about it that much, but when we talk about ventilation, one thing that's really important in the fall, well, if you live in the tundra, you've probably already kicked on your furnace, but make sure, and whatever type of heat you have, even if it's baseboard heat, make sure everything's intact. But if you have a furnace, an air handler, change that filter out. Make sure you change it and put a HEPA filter. That's the best type of filter you can put in there. Make sure, and you can call a lot of gas companies or HVAC companies. It's not that expensive, maybe $150. They'll come out and do a pre-winter check on your furnace.
Okay.
And they'll make sure everything's fine. They'll kick it on. They have gas monitors, combustible gas detectors, where they can make sure that there's not a leak at the gas line or whatnot. But check that kind of stuff out. Another important thing that most people correlate with daylight savings time is changing your batteries out on your smoke detectors. Okay. That's something that's really important. We use what's called liquid smoke. For our listeners, you don't have to go buy that. It comes in an aerosol can. You can get a match and just, light it and then put it, blow it out and put it right below your smoke detector to make sure that they work. Okay. The reason I say that is if you push that button on the smoke detector, you're bypassing the sensor. You're making the audible alarm go off. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're not really testing the sensor. It. So, our listeners can do that. There's many other things. Go, turn the water on in your kitchen sink. Get down below with a flashlight. Make sure nothing's leaking. Look at the floor of the sink, meaning where all your chemicals are usually stored. Make sure there's no water stains. Check around for cracks. There's water stains. Once again, I could do a whole episode on the interior of the home.
So they're really going in room to room.
Correct.
And they're checking to make sure that there's no abnormalities, ventilation is right, water heaters.
Check under your teenager kids' bed. Make sure there's not, some moldy, I don't know, cup of noodles thing underneath there, some old mac and cheese. Take a good look, spend a little more time, look around your windows, make sure there's no water stains. There's so many preventative measures that our listeners could do to prevent major mold issues down the road, and it doesn't take that long to do. And I also, this isn't, we weren't going to promote this, but I have courses online that it's a mold inspection or a home inspection. It's pretty cheap for, what are they, $30?
Yeah. If you go to Udemy and you just look up Steve Worsley, you'll see all of the courses that you've built there. And so what is your call to action for people?
I know everybody's watching football, or I shouldn't say that. Maybe a lot of you are. Some of us might be watching NASCAR, or both. But anyhow, just take 1 hour. I know a lot of people are like, I'm just so busy and blah, blah, blah. You can take 1 hour over the weekend, 30 minutes on Saturday, 30 minutes on Sunday, and go around and look at the things we talked about, because that could save you thousands of dollars down the road. Yep. Because if you need mold mitigation, that hour you were going to spend in your home is going to be 2 weeks you're going to spend out of your home because they're doing mold mitigation.
Correct.
And who knows how much later, $10,000 later.
And so Proactive Now saves you thousands of dollars later.
It's not, I know it's easy for me to say, but, paying attention and doing preventative measures will save you a lot down the road. It's no different than your health.
That's very true. That's very, very true. And, for just like you said with the Udemy courses, you've also got the mold box. So for people who want to make sure that they have access to
we're running a promo on that, correct?
Oh, that's right. We
just lowered the price for a promo.
Exactly.
And so I don't even know what the price is right now. What is it?
$59.69, something like that. I don't know.
And yeah, we're running a promo.
That's right. There's a promo.
They're like, oh, he doesn't even know how much it is. I really don't. I just get the notifications. We ship them out.
That's
But
right.
we are running a promo. And it has there's a guidebook in there.
There's lots of things in there, and I would say it is the gift that keeps giving in a good way.
Yes.
The mold box. So if you go to cnccontractorservices.com, you will be able to find the mold box easily. It is like having a first aid kit in your home for indoor air quality.
Yep.
It's your first aid kit for indoor air quality.
It's something every home should have.
Yep.
I should probably call our congressman and ask if they can make that a law.
Yep. There you go. There you heard it from the expert. So once again, do your fall checklist.
Yep.
Take an hour. Go to Udemy. Take a course so you educate yourself about your home. Get the mold box.
Yep.
There you go.
Easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy. We'll talk to you in the next episode.
Prevent toxic mold exposure before it gets in your home. Download Steve's free mold investigation checklist at tinyurl.com/CNC mold checklist. Again, download Steve's free mold investigation checklist at tinyurl.com/CNC mold checklist.